Hey everyone, it's Matt Williams, Mr. MPW, and welcome to today's video. We're going to be looking at whether and how you can make £65,000 a year or more as a drone operator. This video is proudly sponsored by UAVHUB.com, connecting you to the heart of the drone industry. Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So, it's been a couple of strange weeks, to be honest. I've totally lost my voice. Thank you to all of those who have been following along, have sent in emails, have called the office to make sure I'm okay. I am just about, and yeah, it's still not great. I think it's going to take probably another week or so at the rate it's getting better, but over the last couple of days it has got much better, and we're able to now hopefully do the videos. But apologies, there's a bit more Barry White, a couple of octaves lower than I normally am. Back to normal soon. So today's video, 65 grand as a drone operator. It's one of those things which, to be honest, really pisses me off, people saying this. Now, this has come from a lot of the drone training companies out there, and I guess, you know, they are using it as a marketing tool. They are saying that, oh, you can earn 65 grand or more as a drone operator, and that may be true for some people. I know certainly, you know, we've made a lot of money over the years from flying drones, and the opportunities definitely are there. But what I think is going on is that there's a bit of misrepresentation, there's potentially a bit of mis-selling, and people building up false hopes, I think, and false expectations. You know, people expecting that by getting a website, by getting a drone, you know, Mavic 2 Pro, something like that, by getting their PFCO as it was, their operational authorization with the GVC as it will be, or even an A2 CFC, thinking that by doing that, you're going to be, you know, rolling in gold and you're going to make an absolute fortune. And like I say, whilst that potentially is the case, it's only going to happen if you understand that you need to hit it as a business. And I think it's important to put that into context. 65 grand a year is a lot of money. You know, teachers, a newly qualified teacher, if we look at some kind of salary scales to put it into perspective, and then we'll come back to how we can get there, or if we can even get there as drone operators. You know, teachers, newly qualified teachers, they start off on about 24 grand a year. Up to 30 grand a year, depending on your past experience, what qualifications you have, the type of teaching you're going into, and the area that you're going into. You know, London bias on the wages, about 30 grand a year. So nowhere near the 65 grand a year, which, you know, we are being sold as drone operators that might be a possibility. The average pay for a teacher when they've been in the job for 5 to 10 years is 35 grand a year. So still 30 grand a year short of where the drone companies, some of the drone companies certainly, are telling people where they can expect to be as a drone operator. Head teachers start at 46.5 grand a year for running an entire school. Yes, it goes up to over 100 grand, 114 I think is the maximum for a head teacher in London who's very, very experienced. But the average pay, teacher-wise, highly qualified, looking after our children, day in, day out, so that we can go to work, earns nothing near to the 65 grand a year that the drone operators are potentially being told that they can earn. Doctors, a fully qualified general practitioner in the UK earns between £58,000 and £88,000 a year based on experience. Again, you know, you've got to be a doctor, a fully qualified doctor, specialised in general practice, having done that for probably 10 to 12 years, on top of all of your medical training on the way through and being a junior doctor and all that sort of stuff, before you even hit the 65 grand. An EasyJet pilot starts on about 30 to 32 grand a year as a pilot, having done 12 months of ATPL learning, having spent probably the thick end of 100 grand getting their qualifications, and like I say, 12 months doing that, hundreds of flying hours, minimum of 150 to go and sit in the right-hand seat as a junior first officer, and then you start on 30 grand a year. You'll also probably then be bonded to the airline that you've joined for a minimum of 5 years, and over those 5 years, you'll be having to pay them back for the type rating to go and fly the Airbus or go and fly the 737, whatever it may be. So actually, you earn a lot less than that in the first 5 years until you become a senior first officer and you jump up to something like 65 grand. And then, you know, that you think you've done a minimum of a year's training, you've then spent basically 3 years learning on the job, you've been paying them back for that entire time. You know, to get to the 65 grand a year in the airlines, you're probably looking, as someone green coming into it with no flying experience, probably looking at 5 to 7 years. You know, someone coming into it with a lot of experience, you could perhaps go on to that within 3 years. But even so, very highly specialised. You know, you've got to be pushing well to be earning 65 grand a year. Yes, You can earn up to, just over 100 grand a year with an airline like EasyJet, a short-haul airline, quite a bit more than that with the long-haul fleet. But, again, 65 grand, it takes a lot of specialisms, it takes a lot of learning, it takes a lot of experience to work up to that. And then just from my own experience as a frontline combat-ready helicopter instructor in the Air Force, having been in for 12 years, I was a flight lieutenant, pushing on to acting squadron leader. 45 grand a year is what I earned, including my flying pay. Albeit I joined at 18, so I went in without a degree. So people who got a degree were probably on about 50 to 55, depending on how long they've been in. But that's, again, frontline combat ready pilot. So I think kind of the two big takeaways from this are that, by investing in a basic drone, a Mavic Mini, Mavic 2 Pro, which is what we see probably 98% of people coming through the course with now, and paying the bare minimum to get through a couple of days, a 1 day, half day course, whatever it may be, and get in at the moment your PFCO, and get in the future your operational authorization with GVC permissions or with standard permissions on whatever it may be, isn't going to be the thing, guys, which earns you 65 grand a year. Like I say, to earn that kind of money, you've got to be grafting hard and or at the same time have a specialty which people are willing to pay a reasonable amount of money for, a lot of money for in most cases. You've got to find something which sets you apart if you want to move up to these kind of realms of the 65k plus, and it has to be run as a business if you want to make some serious cash. Now, how do you do this? Ultimately, you have to invest in yourself. It's not just money for training, but it's also, I would say, the time to practice and become the best at what you do. You've got to master flying if you want to earn this kind of money, the same way an airline pilot working their way up to becoming captain to earn big money has to master their art. They have to master their trade. They actually have to do some networking as well, to be honest, to get there. And we need to do the same in the drone industry if we want to get there. In addition to mastering the flying, though, I would say you also need to, even if you're going to be operating as a 2 or 3 person operation, which is what we used to do in the professional drone realm, you still need to, as a pilot, know and understand in depth, I would suggest, camera settings and composition, because that allows you to put the camera in a position which is going to allow the camera operator and the director or the producer, whoever you may be working with, to get the shots that they want. You've got to get your head around the fact that, you're actually not being paid to fly a drone. We are, in the production world, just a piece of grip. We're just an item of grip that is tasked with putting the camera in the right place to get the shots that people need. If you're doing data collection and you're doing 3D mapping and surveys, you are not just flying a drone. You are using that drone as a tool to collect data. It's what you do with that data. It's how good that data set is. It's how you then qualify and quantify that data, which puts a value on it, which puts a value on you, which gets you up to your 65 grand a year that you want. You need to also, I would suggest, if you want to get up to this, consider very strongly getting a drone which sets you apart from everybody else. As I say, we see most people coming through with Mavic 2 Pros, Mavic 2 Zooms, and Mavic Minis, that kind of aircraft. You need to be looking at the Inspire 2 as a minimum with camera and lens combinations on there that makes you stand apart. If you can and you can afford the investment, think of investing in something like a heavy lift rig like the Alta 8. That is the ultimate cinema package. If that's the route you want to go down, if you want to go down the media route, you've got to be looking at that kind of aircraft. If you want to be going down the data collection route, it's all well and good turning up and trying to collect 3D survey data and photogrammetry data with a Mavic 2. You really need to be looking at doing that with a specific aircraft that can give you RTK precision, that can give you better quality photographs, mechanical shutter, for example, which means that the images don't blur when the aircraft's moving quickly. Just all improves your value, it improves the data that you can collect, it improves the level of kind of delivery of data that you can deliver to your clients, and ultimately allows you to charge more. One of the big things that we always used within the drone industry to allow us to charge more, and don't get me wrong, like I say, we earned a lot of money. 65 grand per pilot was kind of the base wage, I guess, that we would have made per operator when we were doing this, not 18 months ago when we stopped because we wanted to drill down into the training side and not be in competition with our students. But that came because we had an operating safety case. We had an OSC. We leveraged the hell out of that to mean that even if we weren't operating under our OSC, it was an incredible marketing tool that allowed us to charge £1,500 a day, $1,250 a day if it was a big block of work. That was our kind of going rate for people who contractors to do a couple of weeks or more. And that was what set us apart. It was having those aircraft, it was having the OSC. We didn't always use the OSC, we didn't always use those big aircraft. But by God, did they look good when people came for meetings and we sat them down in the office and we had the Aerogun out and we had the Alter 8 out and we had the EB out. When we would go to trade stands, trade shows, and we would have a stand and it would be the Alter 8 that was out there for people to play around with, all connected up with a Terra deck, and they could see the feed on the screen. It just means that you stand out above other people. And I totally understand that not everyone can afford to invest in that. Not everyone wants to do this full time. But this comes back to one of the videos that we did a couple of weeks ago, just before I lost my voice properly, where we talked about the gold rush, and people thinking that by getting a drone, by getting a website, by getting a drone qualification from the CAA, they're going to make a fortune. And it's not going to happen, guys. You have to treat this as a business. As part of that, you have to become an expert in your field. You have to find a way to invest in yourself time-wise, monetarily, to make yourself stand out from other people. Run it as a business. You've got to work out how you generate more leads than other people. You've got to work out how you take those leads on a journey to becoming a client of yours, ultimately so that you can deliver value to them and earn money. I think, to put it again into perspective, 65 grand a year breaks down to something like, if you look at the flyable days that we have in the UK, 180 to 200 flyable days a year, it breaks down to having to earn almost 400 quid per flyable day to get your 65 grand a year. Okay, so by the time you factor in a couple of weeks that you might want a week off at Christmas, you might want a week off at in the summer with your family, you take weekends out as well, there's not a lot of flyable days, and you're going to have to be hustling hard and actually charging a lot of money, so therefore delivering a lot of value to your clients in order to be able to make the 65 grand a year that a lot of people are selling. And don't get me wrong, 65 grand a year is achievable. I think just putting the flesh on the bones of that, when I did the America's Cup out in Bermuda, we got that gig because we marketed hard, we set ourselves aside as experts, we had aircraft that no one else had, we had permissions that nobody else had. But there's nothing that stops, that we would get that you couldn't go and do. It was just a lot of hard work, and that was 4 weeks. Be paid 1,500 quid a day plus expenses. You can do the maths on that. So yeah, and that was 4 weeks worth of work, and we earned a lot of money from it, and we had gigs like that all the time. But you have to be looking at it as a business. You've got to be concentrating hard. You've got to be working hard and working smart as well. It's not just about putting the most hours in. It's about working efficiently and potentially having to do that alongside everything else you do. If you want to know more about that, give the team here a shout over at UAVHUB. Drop me a line. I'm more than happy to help. We have products out there. Again, this comes back to investing in yourself. We have products out there that can teach you the business side of things, that teach you the method that we employ and employed to become the biggest drone training company in the world, to become one of the UK's top drone operators and make more than £1 million in our first year of drone operations. So if you want to know more about that, go to MrMPW.com. The marketing courses and sales courses are on there. You can call the team at UAVHUB.com. More than happy to help out. But my voice is about to go, so I'm going to have to wrap this one up. Thank you, as always, for being part of the community. Thanks for bearing with us. Well, I've had to take this couple of weeks to get my voice to recover. I'll hopefully be back every day from now on, so stay tuned. Make sure you give the video a like if you did, subscribe if you haven't, go follow us on the socials. I'll drop the links to those down below. And we've got a great community now building on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And if you want to get flying with me, we're starting that in the next couple of days. I will drop a link to the Twitch channel down below. There's nothing on it yet, but we're hoping to go live at about 8 till half 8 every single night, every single weeknight, UK time. But yeah, find out more about that on the socials. Go and follow us on Twitch. I've been Matt Williams. Fly safe. Blue skies.